I'm David. I'm representing Lark in the Morning, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Chinese bowed instrument called the Erhu, or Yiwu in Cantonese. Anyway, these are one of the older designed bowed instruments in the world, and operate on a very unusual principle of a very thin plate under high tension, the plate in this case being a python skin, over which the strings are stretched with a small bridge and tone filter. The whole family was developed in Central Asia and entered China, probably 1,000 years ago or more, and are characterized usually by having two strings with a bow that goes between the strings, which is very unusual. Matter of fact, when you get one of these instruments, normally they're not set up, so the first thing you'd have to do would be to loosen the thin string. The strings are referred to in Chinese as the inside, which is the thicker string and is closer to you, and the outside string, which is the thinner one that's further away. And you'd have to loosen the thin string, the outside one, from a small pin here at the bottom of the instrument. Then there's different designs how these are exactly attached, depending upon which brand and model of Erhu you're talking about. And thread the bow with that string between the hair and the bow stick, so that the bow stick's here, the thin string is in the middle, and then you have space for the bow hair between the two strings. And unlike a violin bow, which only needs to have rosin on the bottom side of it, an Erhu bow has to be rosined on the inside too. Many of the older instruments, in generations past, players would just melt a little lump of rosin and have it right there on the instrument, so that when they're playing, it would rub up against the rosin and constantly replenish it. Now they just usually put a little small skin protector, a little piece of plastic or something there to protect the skin and the bow from wearing against each other. The typical Erhu is tuned to D and A, the exact same pitch as the middle two strings, D and A, on a violin or a mandolin. This here is the Tianjin. This is the little string wrapper that functions as a nut. Do not remove this. This is an essential part of the instrument. If you get an Erhu some kind of way where it's used or given to you that doesn't have one, it's an easy enough matter just to tie a new one back on. But if you're getting a new instrument, don't assume it's just a string holder. It's an essential part of the instrument. The tuning pegs up here are the modern design that are actually screw tuners that masquerade as the old friction tuners, but many of the instruments still have straight friction tuners. They're pretty straightforward enough to use. These are a little bit harder to string than the other ones, but they give you a greater control over fine pitch, because they are the same type of machine tuners that you'd find on a guitar or something, as opposed to just friction. Let me talk about the bridge and the tone filter a minute. Usually when you get this instrument, the bridge, which is this little small wooden piece right here, is often in the a compartment in the case, separate from the instrument. And it does need to go on pretty much about in the center of the skin. But if you do that without the tone filter, you get a very raw, unrefined tone. So you need to put either a piece of thick foam or rolled up felt or heavy paper or some other type of filter. There are other designs too. I've seen people that use things that go underneath the bridge or other things, but most players use some kind of foam or rolled up felt behind the bridge and under the strings. And if you can see real carefully, it's actually underneath the strings. And when I was setting this instrument up, I just found a piece of thick foam that was of a suitable density to act as a filter. This is very important. In a way, it's almost between the design of the body here, the quality of the skin, and how you set the filter up is what really seems to determine the tone of the instrument. This being a good sounding, but lesser expensive grade. They do go up quite a bit from this. Okay, I guess we should talk a little bit about the fingering. For violin players, you'll notice that there's a stick here, but this isn't really a fingerboard. You actually don't press your fingers against anything other than the strings. So let me turn this way with my hand so you can get an idea what I'm doing. The fingers are just touching the string, to stop it. I'm not pressing all the way down to anything. So there's no contact between anything other than the end of the string and the end of my finger. And that forms a stopping point for the string's vibration. Other than that, the left-hand fingerings are pretty much identical to what you'd expect from violin fingering. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. And your shift position is the same way. So beyond that, there's a tremendous amount of articulations and stylings and things that are really part of the Chinese playing style that add a lot to this. I'm not going to go into that right now. You could actually find a tremendous amount of information about how to play the instrument in Chinese. There's not a lot in English right now, which is probably why I'm describing a bit of this to you. One of the other odd things that you'll do is a left-hand pizzicato. Certain pieces you'll hit a note and pluck a string with your hand, this hand, not necessarily this one. Occasionally players will do. For pizzicatos. There are a few more advanced bowing techniques, but the basics are what's important. And in traditional styles, they rarely went above a simple range like that. In the more modern styles, since the 1920s or so, players have gone all the way up the neck of the instrument. So I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit more for you and let you hear this particular instrument. And thank you.